It is not a normal press club. It's an extraordinary press club. Why? Because it was created quite late. Late 19th century press clubs were created in the capitals of those countries who considered themselves as important. But Brussels had no real press club. It came quite late. And it was chosen as director, therefore apologies that he can't be here, Laurent Brihet, who worked with the royal family here in Brussels. And he created something incredible in a very, very short time. He was elected president of the network of all European press clubs. He was even elected president of the network of all worldwide press clubs. He created the Association of Press Clubs in ACP, Africa, Caribbean, Pacific countries. He created the Association of Press Clubs of the Western Balkans, former Yugoslavia. And he organized the largest press conference in human history, 24 hours on climate, going from one time zone to another, starting in the Pacific and ending in the Pacific. But this press club had never, in all these years of existence here in Brussels, a press conference on Liberia. Despite that Liberia is one of the oldest countries in Africa. League of Nations, founding country from Africa, Liberia. United Nations, founding country, one of the founding countries, Liberia. We all have followed, end of last century, the conflict, the war, the difficulties, blood diamonds, refugees, atrocities. And now Liberia is on the way to a new future. And they have decided to be like the European Union. 2050, they want to be carbon neutral. And a part of these efforts is to change the structure in the energy sector. And therefore you have now the privilege of being the first public of the first press conference of Liberia here in Brussels. And therefore you're seeing there on your total right the minister. So these things are happening. Not now, later. He has no white hair, but I have white hair. I'm 3 years older than him. I just got the information. And then the next generation, you have there the deputy minister. You see always on the name tags who they are. And the person who brought us here together is Laxon. And therefore we are sitting there here. It will start with a presentation and a discussion if you don't have enough questions. Therefore, I propose already to you, think about some comments and some questions. And they're not here because of this press conference. They're not here because of renewable energy. They're here because of Crans-Montana. Crans-Montana is a very innovative way of bringing people together. Hundreds of people are coming for the Crans-Montana Forum here in Brussels together. Plaza Hotel between Gare du Nord and Beaucaire. And all of these presidents, prime ministers and civil society leaders had not the beautiful, the wonderful idea to organize just the day before the Crans-Montana Forum a press conference here to exchange with the Brussels-based interested public about the future of that country and about becoming a model for renewable energy in Africa and in the world. Therefore, welcome our ministers from Liberia. Yeah, you are relaxed there. It's working from there.
Hello. Good afternoon. I bring you warm greetings from His Excellency George Manoia, President of the Republic of Liberia, and also warm greetings from the peaceful, loving, affectionate, and kind people of Liberia. We're happy to be part of this first conference on Liberia in the energy space. We were invited here to participate in the Trans-Montana Africa Summit, but we're also happy to be part of this setting. It's always good to use one stone to kill several birds. So we're here and to discuss Liberia in an open, frank exchange manner. Liberia is rising again on the African continent. We want to leverage our rich diplomatic history that Frank alluded to make a new entry in the Committee of Nations. As you all know, we went through a long civil strife that left the country in a state of dereliction, a state of abandonment, in a state of despair, and pains and suffering. We Liberians, are 16 nations that have come together, that have formed unity in diversity, to put aside the ugly past and embrace the path to freedom, peace, security, and socio-economic growth and development. Is this microphone on?
Yes.
Can you give us? Oh, okay. Because I see that. So okay, good. So I think the focus is on energy. Let me begin by thanking all of our donor partners, development partners, who have been very assistive in the rehabilitation and expansion of our national grid. The EU, the KfW, the German Investment Bank, the European Investment Bank, which is sometimes referred to as a climate bank because they're rolling out funds that will support efforts towards reducing climate change and global warming. The USAID, the African Development Bank, the Swedish government, the Norwegian government, they all have come to our needs in terms of helping us to recover. During the 14-year crisis, all of our energy infrastructure were destroyed. So we now are leaving the stage of recovery into the stage of development. That is the installation of the requisite energy infrastructure across all spectrums, generation, transmission, and distribution. So far, we've made a steady drumbeat of progress in the areas of generation and transmission. However, distribution of electricity supply remains our worst nightmare. So we're trying to tackle this problem head on to ensure that Liberians receive affordable and reliable power supply. Mind you, reliable energy supply is an indispensable ingredient for the growing of a healthy economy. And in order to be a modern nation state, you must have energy sufficiency, energy security. Our interest as Minister of Energy is to ensure that Liberia receives the adequate amount of electricity supply that will meet the growing demand, which is about now 300 megawatts. By 2050, we expect that to grow to about 2,000 megawatts, considering the increase in lots of activities, increase in manufacturing, agricultural programs, mining, etc., etc., etc. In this respect, we have launched a strategic policy which looks at scaling up renewable energy supply and scaling down fossil fuel energy. Our strategic policy is aligned with both regional and global frameworks that seek to address the phenomenon of global warming, that seek to address the phenomenon of climate change. So our policy is aligned with the Paris Climate Accord, which seeks to cap global warming at no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. Our policy is also aligned with the AU Agenda 2063, which promotes the building of environmentally sustainable and climate resilient economies in Africa. Our policy is also aligned with the COP, Conference of Parties 26, which seeks to radically address the carbon footprint. Our policy is also aligned with the SDG 7 of the UN, which seeks to provide clean, affordable and reliable energy for all. We also would like to see Liberia meeting the universal access rate of 80% by the year 2030. Even if we can go halfway by meeting that access rate, I will be a happy man. The current access rate is only 12%, which is undesirable, which is unacceptable when you think that right next door in La Côte d'Ivoire, you have an access rate of more than 90%. And Ghana has an access rate of 80% plus. So for Liberia to become on par with those other countries, we have to work harder. Fortunately, we have a project called the Transco CLSG Transmission Line Project, which attempts to integrate the energy systems of Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, all under the auspices of WAP, West African Power Pool. All 15 member ECOWAS countries acceded to an energy protocol in 2015, which calls for the integration of our energy grids. And that is gaining momentum. Notwithstanding, the CLSG transmission line project is only, I would say, a suboptimal solution, a part of the energy mix. It's part of the energy solution, but we have to generate more electricity from renewable sources, hydro, power. Liberia is blessed with many river systems, 6 major river systems, upon which various grades of hydropower systems can be constructed. Our base load projection from hydropower is well placed at about 5,000 megawatts. Our base load projection for solar energy can be well placed at about 1,000 megawatts. So our strategic vision is to see Liberia becoming a renewable energy hub with the prospects of becoming a net exporter of energy. Mind you, the CLSG transmission line project is an import-export system. So a participating country may import electricity or export electricity. We want to do both. In order to do both, you have to have sufficient generation capacity that we're moving towards. Currently, in terms of energy supply, we have the LEC, the Liberia Electricity Corporation, which is a 100% state-owned enterprise. And they operate our only hydropower dam called the Mankofi Hydropower Plant, located somewhere in the western region, not too far from the capital, Monrovia. That dam was rehabilitated from a pre-war capacity of 65 megawatts to 88 megawatts. That base load is very, very insufficient in terms of meeting the growth, the load demand of the population. There are lots of IPPs, independent power producers, that actually use diesel and plants, thermal plants to produce electricity, the hotels and the other commercial and industrialized centers. Our national energy strategy looks at 3 dimensions. The great solution. Citizens, commercial enterprises, industrial enterprises that are in close proximity to the grid may benefit. And then we also have the off-grid. The off-grid solutions. The off-grid solutions look at rural electrification. In fact, for that matter, we have a separate entity called the RREA, Rural and Renewable Energy Agency, that seeks to supply electricity in the rural settings. And that is punctuated by standalone, meaning hydropower systems, standalone PV solar plant systems, combination of hydro and solar systems. And we'll also have home solar systems for those communities that are actually not in the vicinity of the grid, neither in the vicinity of standalone solar power systems. So in terms of the energy governance process, the Ministry of Energy sits at the apex of the governance architecture. We drive the policy direction in terms of the development of all sources of energy, hydrocarbons, hydro, solar, wind, biomass, etc. In fact, there are opportunities to harness energy from along our coastline by a means that is referred to as OTEC, Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion. So we have 350 mile coastline, about 550 kilometers of coastal length. Liberia has experienced, I would say some negative impacts of climate change and global warming. We're building climate resilient structures. There's an area within Monrovia called New Cruton that suffered immense sea erosion. There was a high school there that was losing enrollment. And after the Ministry of Mines and Energy made interventions to protect that school and other structures, we witnessed an increase in enrollment of the school, all due to sporadic changes in climate patterns. We also wish to make some meaningful interventions within a nearby community called West Point that has also been inundated by massive sea erosion. We're also making interventions within one of our coastal cities known as Greenville, where sea erosion is eroding away our beaches and other structures. In terms of supporting the Paris Climate Accord, we have been asked as one of our NDC's nationally determined contributions to save about 30% of our forest cover. Mind you, Liberia is a small country, about 43,000 square miles. Notwithstanding, Liberia owns about 40% of the upper Guinea rainforest, and which is an important contribution towards carbon sequestration. So all of these concepts about the carbon credit scheme and the Green Climate Fund, we've been benefiting from support from climate organizations such as the GCF, the Green Climate Fund, and the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, to help us to build climate resilient structures. So I would like to stop here for now and hope that we will interact. And from what I've said, I have my able lieutenant, Deputy Minister Emmanuel O. Sherman, who is here to buttress me. I know I'm getting older, and the older you get, the more senile you become. So he usually reminds me of what to say, and when I become oblivious.
You've done extremely well.
Are you sure? Please don't flatter me here. Anyway, Frank, so I want to stop here. I know there's more to be said, but let's see how a conversation can be triggered between the audience and us. Thank you.
Okay. Oh no, this is yours.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes. On the figures, 1,000 megawatt. Is it working? Yes. Good. 1,000 megawatt, how much is it? An ordinary nuclear power plant has 1,000 megawatt. To have a reference. And they aim, what you've said, 2,000 megawatt. First remark. Second, the country, like a lot of countries in the area, have a wet season and a dry season. The dry season now, because of climate change, is starting earlier and it finishing later. You mentioned only the rising sea level and the devastation, but it is as well, for the whole of the country, the shift and the prolongation of the dry season. But I think what is necessary to mention as well is when you are responsible as a politician in a country, one of your tasks is as well to offer the population to be proud of being in that country. Okay, not the nationality, but to be there, a part of the structure. And renewable energy has a big advantage. Those of you who are in renewable energy know it. To install renewable energy structures, to maintain it, you don't have to study in a Western-style university or Eastern-style university. You can do it as a craftsperson, a craftsman or a craftswoman, which means it supports the local workforce, it supports the local economic structure, small and medium-sized companies. And sometimes out of something evil, something bad, something good can come. A country devastated by the conflict. You heard the figures of what percentage is linked to the grid, some 12%, neighboring countries 80 to 90. This can be something positive, something out of it. Installation of decentralized structures, especially solar, to satisfy the population. And don't forget, in 2023 they have elections. And they want to show the political elite now. He's not only politician, he was a famous jazz musician before. But he chose politics, yeah, but only besides. And political elite has to show the population as well that you're on the good path. That means enlarge the number of people linked to the electricity grid, and those who are not linked, to show them that there is a fair chance that in the very near future they will be linked either to a decentralized or the central grid. But these are only some short remarks for me. Now, Sherman, do you want to add something?
He triggered, a topic. I think, was it the wise man Winston Churchill, the wise statesman, who rightly differentiated between the optimists and the pessimists. And I think he said the pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. On the other hand, the optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. The 12% access rate that he alluded to, that gap has to be filled. And there is a demand from various sectors. So we're looking at various models to capitalize the Liberia Electricity Corporation, which is the largest owner of energy infrastructure in the country, through PPP arrangements, private-public partnership, and also private capital investment into the energy space. We are going to have an energy investors forum in September of this year. And the intent of that energy forum is to expose the energy sector to prospective investors, telling them the opportunities that exist, and the challenges that have to be conquered. In Liberia, as Minister of Energy, I've been advocating for the privatization of the sector, mainly distribution. Because to me, I think it's unwise to have a public utility in charge of all three dimensions: generation, transmission, distribution. I think they're overly burdened, and there is a need for further unbundling, and also perhaps looking at privatizing the distribution network system as is happening in other jurisdictions. Right next door in Sierra Leone, you have success in the unbundling of the energy sector. In Ghana, Ghana is a classic example. A few weeks ago, under the auspices of the World Bank, we did an energy tour study of the Ghanaian energy landscape, and we're very, very impressed with the differentiation of functions and tasks. We visited the VRA, the Volta River Authority, that's in charge of generation. We're very impressed to know that they have an excess of 1,000 megawatts. And we've been talking with them to see how we can transport some of that energy through La Côte d'Ivoire into Liberia. We're also very impressed with the other energy entities like GridCo, responsible for transmission, and other entities responsible for distribution. And it's bearing fruit, because in Liberia we have to work hard on the mentality of the citizenry in terms of knowing the value of electricity. That electricity is a commodity that must be paid for. And gradually, that is sinking to the minds. And we hope that the electricity market will become very, very viable and sustainable in the not too distant future. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. And after, when it's finished, we will go to hydrogen, the summer party of Hydrogen Europe. And possibly in 5 years or 10 years, hydrogen might be produced in the country and exported to Europe. Green hydrogen from renewable energy sources. Now, a secret, all of you who are now sitting here are more knowledgeable than all other people in Brussels on Liberia and energy policy and energy situation. You are now an elite, a special elite. But I see someone would like to take the floor. Because of the camera and everything here will be recorded, and afterwards you can follow on the web. Please go to the pupitre there and speak from there. Then everyone can see you and everyone can listen to you. Please. And look at him. Where is he from? It's Reza
From
Sain,
Africa.
and he's from Mauritius,
Mauritius.
this wonderful island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Please.
Absolutely. Thank you, Frank. Hello, everyone. I just had a question for the Honorable Minister. What is the stance of Liberia on autonomous power grids, especially ones which would be powered by renewables?
Please, beg your pardon, can you just repeat that?
What would be your opinion, on autonomous, decentralized, power grids, voilà, as a policy? For instance, especially ones which would be powered by renewables or on a more on a community level. Thank you.
Wow, that is an option that will be highly welcomed. Because, listen, like I said, communities and commercial and industrialized centers that are far away from the grid have to have supply. So we're looking at dedicated, standalone hydropower or solar power plants that will support the energy need of, for instance, a mining company. Currently, mining companies are knocking on our door when they heard the good news about the arrival of the CLSG transmission line system. They've been asking for 25 megawatts. You know, a company called B Mountain Mining Corporation that extracts gold from the western region. And also the giant steel ArcelorMittal is banging on our door asking for like 75 megawatts of electricity. So opportunities abound for, you know, standalone dedicated power systems that can serve those mining companies as well as the surrounding communities. Yes, so we'd like to see more concept note in that regard, and see how we can roll out some means of deploying that option into our energy space. It's a good question.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Now, okay, now we continue with the two questions. Therefore, I ask you now, please, can you go there as well? It is Stella Velici. She's a little bit from Romania, a little bit from Europe, a little bit from Germany, and a little bit from Belgium.
No, I am not a little bit from Europe. I am from Europe.
Yes, apologies, 100% from Europe, yes. Yes.
So I have studied physics and have to add something. The G7 decision to pay a lot of money for the infrastructure in African country can help you to build this infrastructure for your green energy. It's yesterday they take this decision. So my first question.
Thank you to mention it, new for most people here. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's true. Huh?
Yeah.
600 million, I don't know how much, for for African country, for the reason that China will invest in all this infrastructure. All the country China invested are plight. They have no financial more. I don't know how they are doing and how, but that is a big problem. But I don't want to speak
Can
about
we
it.
respond question by question along the way, just
Yeah.
in case that we can?
It was not a question.
Oh, it was a s- okay.
This
I
was
had
a general
something.
information, a positive
My
general
question
information.
is now,
First
huh?
question.
Okay.
First question is, how do you implement the green energy for the very isolated villages and for the poor family? And how much is costed the green energy or electricity? Yeah? It is cheaper, it is expensive, you help this family, you don't, it's only for very people in difficulties. Second one
No,
is
first
about...
question and answer. Is there a social aspect
Yeah.
for energy? Please.
Yes, so as a policymaker, we brainstorm in terms of improving access to electricity to the regular mom and the regular dad. Mind you, our tariff at a certain point in time, maybe 3-4 years ago, was like 55 cents per kilowatt hour. We fought very, very hard to drive it down to 35 cents per kilowatt hour. We have
Pardon.
A
And this
rec-
is more than in all European Union countries.
Yeah.
so fortunately, we managed to unbundle the LEC. And now we have a regulator called the Liberia Electricity Regulatory Commission. Working along with them, working along with the LEC, we have driven down the tariff into two major components. One is a social tariff, or what we call a lifeline tariff of 18 cents for the regular mom and dad, and an incentivized tariff of 22 cents for commercial users. That we feel that can help to reduce the burden, even though the LEC has been complaining about the loss of revenue, but we're very, very sensitive to the needs of the ordinary people. They must feel the impact of electricity in their life.
Yeah. It's a good
Second
part.
question.
Second question, you speak something about the ocean energy. As I know, there are some researchers in England about the ocean energy, but it's especially with the wave energy, but it's not so very good because the transformation of wave energy in electricity is not so very effective. So my question is, do you speak about wave energy, or you have another ocean energy that you use it? I don't know. I only ask like this.
No, there's an energy prospect that is
Yeah.
being explored. About 20, 30 years ago, as a young geologist, there were certain studies conducted concerning what the technology called OTEC, Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion. So right now we are in a dire strait situation in terms of energy supply. So we are exploring every possible means, every possible source of energy generation. That is why I mentioned that prospect.
Yes, I
Yes, it's
understand.
not definitive.
My yeah,
Third question. Yes.
No, it's my last.
Yeah.
My last question
Third and last.
is what is the influence of the climate change in your country, and what if you see some influence of climate change of the green energy?
Yes, I think we're feeling the pinch of climate change. And I think Frank made some allusions to some of that. For instance, our only hydropower dam is an ROR system, run of the river system. And the operational efficiency of the dam depends on the inflow of water into the dam.
Yeah.
This year, the dry season came in earlier than expected, and it has lasted longer than expected, which drastically impacted on the inflow of water to turn the turbines. Mind you, we have four turbines, 4 units. Each unit requires a discharge rate of no more than 100 cubic meters per second. The discharge rate dropped as low as 18 cubic meters per second. So the LEC, in that particular circumstance, was doing load shedding, was doing 80% load shedding. So can you imagine being in that situation? So the corporation was only able to supply 20% of supply to the period. So it's being felt. It's also being felt along our coast. Mind you, the impact of global warming, you have glaciers in the northern regions melting, and then you have this inflow of water into the ocean, sea level rise. So, like I mentioned, we have 2 communities that were being inundated by sea erosion. And we went there and installed some coastal defense walls. So it's impacting Liberia very severely. That's why we've, in our national national action plan, we're looking at building resilient climate structures that would lead to the path of mitigation and adaptation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, in a more rigid way, less academic, you have a dam, the water makes working the turbines, and suddenly there is no water enough. That means the best turbines in the world stop. And 20% only efficiency because there's not enough water because of climate change in the river. The next question is coming from Nigeria. No, pardon. Bullshit.
Congo.
It's coming from Congo.
Thank you very much for your explanation.
Syriac, apologies. You are from the RDC, you are from Congo. Apologies.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's a very interesting subject, as you know. There's a future coming. We all are turning around the energy sector. But the first question is, have you introduced what type of insurances within the market or within industry or within rural areas to challenge a number of risks? This is the first question. Do you have any insurances? What type of insurances?
What type of
Insurance.
Insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second question is very easy. Are you producing yourself the equipment in your country or you buying them outside the country?
No, we're not producing any energy equipment in the country. Most of the equipment are imported, except for makeshift inventions. But no, I think most of 90% is imported into the country. In terms of insurance, companies come to us and they want to invest in energy space, but they're asking for a sovereign guarantee. It's a difficult thing for us because the LEC, the state-owned enterprise that is responsible for supply of electricity, has been suffering some serious setbacks in terms of revenue collection. So we didn't give guarantees to the LEC. So it's difficult for us to give guarantee. However, if your proposal is so encouraging, is so beneficial for the greater good of the country, we could look into that possibility. What we do is to provide, the enabling environment for you to plant your investment seed and enable it to grow and prosper. So in 2019, we released an energy policy note that guides investor into the energy space. One of those we're looking at, sovereign guarantee may be a possibility. And we don't like this thing about take or pay. And companies come and they want to evacuate or produce 50 megawatts, and they're requiring either the LEC or the government to lift all of the electricity produced. So we're saying come into the country, do a scoping analysis of the energy landscape, and we can help you to find a customer base that you can sell to and make some profits. We also do not like to have high interest rates on loans obtained for energy projects. Mind you, we just left the HIPIC regime, the heavily indebted poor countries regime, and we have World Bank and IMF programs running our country, and we have been capped in terms of our borrowing capacity. So that is why we're very, very mindful in terms of giving sovereign guarantees. We're very, very concerned about the financing options and the paying back of loans. We're very, very mindful of that. At a certain point in time, we may begin to give sovereign guarantees. Thank you.
Now we continue with a question from Germany.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Kockmann. Thank you very much again for the opportunity, really valuable, dear Minister. I have three small questions. The first is, what are the main barriers to access the rural area for the renewable energy? If you want, again, like before, maybe the first
Yes,
answer.
one by one.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to remind me, so I'll have to rely on myself.
Maybe some keywords that I meant, whether it's more political, whether it's like the skilled labor, or whether it's investments, or maybe geology to access the rural areas.
We have poor road network interconnectivity, mainly going towards the southeastern region. That's why His Excellency has made road construction his number one priority. So road connectivity is being worked on. There are no political setbacks. There are no cultural setbacks. Liberians are anxious to enjoy a new comfort in their lifestyle. So you'll be welcome. You need to get yourself maybe some 4x4, reach it, 4x4, and vehicles to get into the rural settings and to collect your energy data. We do not have any energy data on our wind turbine prospects. We do have a solar map of the country. We do have a hydrological map of the country that shows you the various river systems, the drainages, and the various basins that you may use to build, some of your large-scale or small-scale hydropower systems.
Okay, thank you very much. And the second question, is there a special plan or opportunity for young people to get jobs? I don't know about the employment sector in Liberia, but in general, like young people, especially, they want also job security for the future, and renewable energy is quite promising. Is there a plan that also other countries in the region can learn from Liberia, and a plan how to make it very inclusive for young people in the energy sector? And because here in Europe, what our problem is with renewable energy is that we don't have enough skilled labor to actually put out the solar energy and the wind energy. That's my question.
Yes, you're so correct. The youth are the future of any country. Lately, the Ministry of Youth and Sports, that is responsible for the development of the youth, launched a program called At Risk Youth. And funds have been generated from the governmental setting, from donor partners and other people to see how we can build the requisite skills sets for youths, to make them marketable, to make them more productive, to get the minds of drugs. And looking at the education curriculum, how we can make it more responsive to current day reality. How can we just say, well, just go and get a college degree, a bachelor degree or a master's degree, and there's no place for you? How can you have your hands somewhere that you can begin to realize returns from your skills rather than waiting for a white-collar job? So we're trying to reverse that scenario. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And a bit different question. Do you think that in the privatization, when I look at the European scenario, the privatization necessarily did not in itself speed up the renewable energy, because we need a lot of regulation and other incentives. Privatization itself didn't bring us on a climate neutral path. Do you think that, I don't know, if you looked at the European level and thought you can learn something from that, or what do you think? Do you think there will be a lot of challenges regarding regulation when you think of privatization? Because nowadays, or for example, it's a different situation, but for example in Germany with the exit of coal energy, we have to pay a lot of money for the workers to give up their coal jobs. Just as an example, because of privatization, there come other challenges, and you need to create new incentives to achieve the goals. So, do you think that there's something that you say that, okay, that's what we can do better than what happened in Europe?
Well, I would say privatization with a human touch, not with solely capitalistic venturism. Privatization that we consider seriously how the regular mom and dad would benefit. The reason we want to push forward the path of privatization because privatization brings competition, and competition brings benefits. So we want to privatize, but to privatize in a manner that will not disaffect the masses of the people. So it's being considered, but it's being carefully worked on. I told you earlier on, we did not feel good to have the large users and the small users pay the same tariff rate. That's why we have a social tariff and a commercialized, incentivized tariff. So that will be done in the same realm if we were to go down the route of privatization.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are now going to France. It is Anaël Bartel, please.
Hi, first thank you very much for the presentation. So my name is Anel from France, and I want to follow up on one of the questions from Nicolas about the youth. So I'm part of an organization, a youth organization, and you just said that the youth is future. And I think this is very important because when we hear this kind of sentence, for us, it gives us a lot of hope. And so I wanted to know, because I see that you have 2 programs to help youth to get engaged and develop their skills and get more marketable, have more employment rate. But I also got a question about, do you plan to make like a space for youth to express themselves regarding sustainable development? And if yes, how would you do so?
Oh, yes. Free speech, free association are all tenets of a good democratic system. In fact, literally, Liberia was rated as a country with the best latitude in terms of free speech, and people go on the airwaves and spew out all kinds of invectives and insults. There's no political prisoner. There's no journalist in jail, and journalists, nowadays they blackmail you, and they publish information that cannot be confirmed. And the youth are driving that kind of force. They say what they want to say. They say what they want to say to the government. So we believe in a free speech. Of course, free speech comes with responsibility. But being that the society is a little bit fragile, so to speak, we want to maintain the democratic credentials of peaceful transitions. So that is something that's happening right now. And I think Deputy Minister Sherman can attest to that, that there's a critical value in terms of our democracy where people say what they want to say without fear or favor. Yes, I can attest to that. So youth are free. You can come there and say what you want to say anytime.
Of course. Of course. So, it's more about, do you think they could also help you to find solutions? Because, of course, as I understand, you find solutions, and they're very interesting for our future and to have a sustainable future. But do you think they could help you in a way to find solutions? Because, of course, it's about the future of all of us, but maybe for young people and even younger than me, because still I'm growing up, we are scared, of course, for our future. When speaking about environment, do you think they could help you to find some solutions?
Exactly so. Their views are respected. They're part of the process of inclusive growth and development. That's why we're rolling out programs that will make the participation valuable in the development space. You can be assured that youth bear a critical concern to the government. There are youth centers being built across the country to keep their minds focused, because an adult mind is the home of the devil's workshop. The president is building several sports parks across the country, the latest one being the Invincible Sports Park. And nowadays, you see youths streaming in there and de-stressing, shooting some basketball and playing soccer. And the soccer is a serious sport in Liberia. So the youths are being mentored, they're being guided, and it takes a while. Now you know this thing about mindset and this thing about achieving success without working for it is a problem right now. I mean, that's the negative aspect. Some youths feel that they just have entitlements. How do they achieve the entitlements is the challenge. So working on the mindset, grooming them, mentoring them to ensure that they're part of the inclusive growth and development that the country is moving towards.
Thank you, Anel. We are coming slowly to the end of this press conference. Who else? Yes. Julian Keimer, working in the Commission. Explain exactly where you're working, as you've never heard of something like this. It's a paradise job. Please explain.
Well, I won't explain in detail where I'm working. First of all, thank you for being here and informing us.
No, but what is your responsibility in the Commission? No one had ever heard of
I
it.
work on evidence-informed policy making. So how to inform policy making with good evidence, and that's actually
Wow, it's an interesting one.
that's actually
And on
what
values.
and on values. But my first question will refer to and on values and identities. But my first question, dear Minister, will actually refer to the use of evidence, because you mentioned that you're looking into every possible source of energy, but also that you are not sure about the prospects, for example, for wind energy, if I remember correctly. And I was originally I wanted to ask you, what is the production cost over, let's say, a 20-year time frame for 1 kilowatt hour of energy for the different energy sources that could be possible, let's say, with current technology? But I understand now that you might not even have that information. So that's why actually my question, I changed my question.
Thanks for changing the question.
And now I would like to know, who is researching this? Who is doing the research, or which knowledge, which resources are you using to determine what is the best option? That I think would be very interesting from the perspective of evidence-informed policy making. Then I have two smaller questions afterwards. But
Okay, let's see. Energy research. We have a division at the Ministry of Mines and Energy, the Department of Energy, that has a unit that conducts research. And that research is conducted alongside other stakeholders, including the LEC, the Liberia Electricity Corporation, including the NIC, the National Investment Commission, including the regulator, the Liberia Electricity Regulatory Commission, and the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. We all work together in concert to see how we can zero in on the best option to gain energy efficiency and sufficiency. Currently, we're looking at the solar prospects very, very highly, because I indicated that we fall within the solar-rich region, and we can produce energy that can satisfy domestic consumption as well as export excess generation. So there's a multi-stakeholder involvement in this research program. Solar is really picking up in Liberia. In fact, many homes now have their own solar panels benefiting, and it's almost like a 24-hour production of solar. Um, so yes, solar is gaining momentum. We're looking at biomass as a possibility. Wind, we do not have any studies on wind turbines, but I know that there are certain terrains in our country, in the southeastern region and in the northern region, that have semblance of savanna, because trees and other stuff can be barriers for wind speed. So we need to do some calculations relative to the type of wind speed and work and the quantum of energy that could be produced from those settings. Yes, we are.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, no, my phone turned itself off and I lost my next question, but I remember it. So my next question was into energy storage, because of course all the renewable solutions have the problem that you can't just turn them on and off as you want, and understand you have a hydropower plant where you can probably regulate to a certain degree, but which solutions are you looking into for energy storage?
Well, we're looking at hydropower at night, and at day solar power. This year, because of climate change, global warming, we have severe energy hardship. So for next year, 2022, 2023 dry season, we want to fill that gap. We want to construct a solar power plant, at least 20 megawatts, at the Mount Coffee hydropower plant. That will help to fill the gap during the dry season. Mind you, the hydropower, is a semi-annual production cycle. We want to make it a full cycle. That is why we want to build a second hydro dam just further upstream of the Mount Coffee that will deliver another 120 watts of electricity from hydro. Of course, mix that with solar component of 90 megawatts. So we have upwards of more than 250 megawatts from the second hydro dam. And according to the optimization studies conducted, the feasibility studies conducted, we have identified a catchment zone that can store enough water in the reservoir that will run the second hydro, as well as provide enough water to spin the turbines further downstream at the Mount Coffee. So we're looking at sustainable solutions in the future. Sustainable solutions.
Great. And my last question is something that is always big in Europe in the discussion about sustainability and renewable energy is saving energy. Well, your consumption, the consumption in your country is most likely going to go up, but are you also looking into solutions to somehow save and reduce or limit to some degree the consumption by being more energy efficient, for example?
Exactly. So I've been having discussion with the Minister of Finance Development Planning to do an energy conference among the stakeholders. The direction that we want to take now is to have each government institution pay its own electricity bill. Currently, the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning is paying the electricity bills for all of the institutions. And we still left with a degree of confusion in terms of the billing methodology deployed by the LEC. So we're anxious to know how the institutions are built. Perhaps we're being overly built or being underbuilt. So we have that conference coming up soon to have each institution pay for its own electricity services. So perhaps when the minister is going home, he will make sure to cut off his air conditioner. The employee will make sure to switch off the lights in his or her office. So, so this new direction we're taking to create more responsibility in terms of energy conservation. Yeah.
Great. Well, these were my 3 questions. Thanks. a
One-
lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. Now we have still 2 questions. First from England. England and Belgium. Yes.
Thank you. Pour commencer, merci à l'Arsène, mais il a disparu. Thank
But
you, Minister.
Laxon will come back, you will see.
Thank you, Minister.
Yeah.
You were in a jazz band. I wonder, as a geologist, you should have been in a rock band.
That's true.
Myself and Patricia work for an international NGO, and I'm wondering, given that you are connected and work with the European Union, whether there are any other countries, any other states, actors in Africa or further afield with whom you are working to develop this inspirational vision for energy production and transportation and distribution in Liberia.
Oh, yes, there's a network of donors and development partners. Critical among those, is the EIB, the European Investment Bank. They have a good presence there. The EU generally has a good presence there. In fact, as part of our national electrification strategy to improve and expand electricity, we divided sections of the country into several T&D corridors, transmission and distribution corridors. And the EU has taken up the responsibility where we have the greatest population, Monrovia. So they're sponsoring the Monrovia Consolidation Project. The earmarks upwards of more than 50,000 new connections. They've been helping with transformers, with meters, and yes, and lots of other support, are being provided to help the energy sector grow. So yes, the EU we have very, very a good relationship, warm relationship, cordial, and in fact, there's another project that the EU wishes to undertake. It's a rural electrification project in an area called Grand Bassa County. They want to distribute electricity there and then go onward to another county called Greenville. So yeah, so the EU has a heavy presence there. In fact, before I came to Brussels, my good friend, Ambassador De La Hous, who is the ambassador of the EU delegation in Liberia, had a conversation. He asked me to, of course, meet some members of the EU team in Liberia and have some discussions. So yes, relationship is cordial, is warm, and I think they're one of our best partners.
My question was, any countries other than the European Union?
Or countries, I would say yes. Okay, the Swedish government has been very supportive. The Norwegian government has been very supportive. The U.S. through USAID.
Yes. Now, tomorrow is planned a meeting with a representative from a Latin American country who are going through a similar process. But this is only tomorrow. I hope it will be successful. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Minister.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, the last question, Hafsat Abiola from Nigeria. Please, Hafsat. And she's the president, based in Paris, of Women in Africa.
Wow.
Wow!
That's so nice. Thank you. Honorable Minister of State, thank you for your presentation. I was wondering if you'd just come from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting that held in Rwanda, because I was told that in that meeting, many African countries discussed the issue of renewable energy and came to the understanding that perhaps they should also look inward for investment for the energy solutions for Africa. And I would like you to speak to that, because in that regard, for your energy plans for Liberia, are you reaching out to investors from other African countries, perhaps from Morocco, Nigeria, other countries, South Africa? And how is that going? How can we help? You know, at the end of the day, I know the EU has the money that has been committed, and the G7 that was just committed that our friend mentioned, 600 is it million?
600 million.
Yeah, 600 million euro. Yes, and so that's a lot of money. But we all know also that there are so many difficulties with accessing G7 money. I'm sure you agree. I'm actually on the phone on WhatsApp chatting with some of my friends at the Africa Development Bank, where they've been running the Affirmative Finance Action for Women in Africa, AFAWA, the program to give women entrepreneurs across Africa money. And about at least 300 million euro was committed by G7 for that, with France taking a lead. But it took about 4 years for the money to be in Cote d'Ivoire at the Africa Development Bank office in Cote d'Ivoire. And now they're rolling out, because Women in Africa, my organization, is working directly with them on for several African countries. So it's very ambitious. It's going to make a difference. But the Europeans and Americans and the West are just very slow. We know this. I'm sorry, I hope you don't feel bad, but it's just a fact. So, you know, by the 4 years that it took them to implement and deliver the money for AFAWA, you would already be out of office. No, because your term is only I don't know if Liberia is 6 years. Oh, so maybe you'll be able to do something in the last
I have
two.
1 more year remaining on my tenure. 1 more year remaining from my tenure.
But I mean, you could be reappointed.
Yes.
Because
hopefully.
if it's just 1 more year, then forget the Europeans. I hope you know this. So, but I mean, what in terms of what can we expect? I mean, are you reaching out to other players in other African countries, or even to the diaspora, who there are people here from the diaspora here? They are so committed to Africa. They send billions into Africa every year. Billions. They send as much into Africa as aid money, or even more. So, but the thing is that there's no vehicle for them to send money for development, which your project, without energy, there is no development for Africa. That's just fact. So your project is pivotal. If you could maybe create a vehicle with your project where diaspora from Liberia, but even just from Africa as a whole, we can put money, and we know we will make money. We don't need the money to be short term. We don't want it. We're not hungry to eat from Africa like everybody else. We actually want Africa to grow and Africa to develop. So it can be medium term returns. What about doing something like that? Because the one that we're doing, where we present, these people, it's not going to work in that way. I mean, and I studied development, so this is my final, and I know I'm talking for such a long time, but I've studied development for over 20 years, and I did my master's in this subject in China. I did undergrad at Harvard in the US, but master's in China. And when I was studying for my master's at Tsinghua in Beijing, I learned that when the Chinese were opening up and looking to grow, the initial investment came from where? A group they call ABC, or it's like American-based Chinese. But actually, the first group was not ABC, was just overseas-based Chinese. They were based in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, in Singapore. The people close, and then they started sending money to invest in opening up China. Then after that, the others, American-based Chinese, it was after all these Chinese people in the diaspora had started sending money to show that this thing is happening. These people are not going back to communism, they're moving forward. That was when the rest of the world turned and started paying attention. But we want this world to turn, to pay attention. Then they may do. I mean, finally, 4 years later, AFAWA has about 300 million euros, so it finally will come. But perhaps we should also galvanize our diaspora, because we are hungry to see Africa rise.
And to add this, there's a strong Liberian diaspora in Belgium, in the Netherlands, in France,
Yes.
and in the US.
Especially in the US.
Yes, you're right.
But especially in the Netherlands as well.
Talk to us about what you're doing to
But I think you said it so succinctly. Your analysis, points to more inward looking. It's more inward looking towards yourself to provide solutions. I don't want to get into the spectrum of the big power politics, the G7, the Commonwealth. Now, if we look at the G7, we have 54 African countries. But I would say one country is representing the 54 through the chairmanship of the AU, now President Macky Sall of Senegal. So our voice is not strong enough to harvest the benefits from the G7. The Commonwealth is another story. So I think more inward looking, mobilizing Liberians in the diaspora, mobilizing Africans in the diaspora, mobilizing Liberians in Africa, to see how we can pool resources to solve problems rather than only looking at the West. And mind you, in terms of global warming and capping, reducing greenhouse gas emission levels, they will offer you a package, but there will be all kinds of, I would say, convoluted frameworks to benefit. Now, for us in Liberia, they're asking us for some framework to call environmental and social governance framework that we must meet certain benchmarks in order to benefit from the climate fund, the climate bond. And these are very difficult benchmarks to achieve. Now, we look at the evidence. Liberia has several millions hectares of forest. It's there, it's clear. But then they still require that we meet certain benchmarks in order to benefit from the what they call the climate fund or the green fund, whatever. So let's look internally. I agree with you. Let's look internally and seek out those resources that can be blended to make it more sustainable. Because if we invest into ourselves, it is more sustainable that we have others invest into us. I would just stop there and say that, well, Liberia, I would like for you to consider Liberia as a green shoot that is willing to be nurtured to enable it grow and prosper and flourish. Liberia is on the rise again. Liberia was on the rise before. We had a slip, and we're trying to regain our balance. So I would like to assure all meaningful, all well-intentioned investors that those who will plant their feet now in Liberia, those who will plant a seed right now, could reap very handsomely in the future. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are coming nearly to an end. Leo, please. No, don't stop yet, Leo, because I will ask now first applause for our guests from Liberia. And second, please come all here on the stage and wave to the camera to those people who are looking on us via the web.